Hey, good morning, Michael.
Hey,
Hey,
good morning. Good morning.
yeah, so welcome everybody to the Nifty Crypto Stuff and our crypto conversations. Apologies for last night if you tuned in to our live show and got 20 minutes of we're starting at 7 p.m. after 7,
Live TV.
right? We had a lot of technical difficulties. We got some traveling going on, and so our normal setup was not normal. Um, so next week we should be back to our full blown regular stuff that we do here. Yeah.
This is what happens when you're a rookie. You fail a lot,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
So,
So hey, we're
yeah,
just taking our lumps.
right. And then we just want to do a quick announcement off the top to our Patreon peoples. We have some videos coming that are going to be some market update things and kind of what we're doing personally on more specific. And then I'm going to have an update on our DAO token stuff. I'm one step closer to launching that to everybody. And then some info about the NFT that we're going to drop as well.
Yeah, that Patreon group has been awesome. I think we are up to like 11 people on that Patreon, and we really appreciate you guys supporting us.
Yeah.
But also, I think some of the content that we want to really put in is more very specific to, hey, what are the opportunities that are really out there, right? So while this stream and conversation is a lot of,
It's more broad strokes,
it's more
right?
broad strokes, and it's to
Yeah.
help people and get them started and you know quash some of the fears and stuff. But I think the Patreon group is kind of more say, or at
Right,
least that's
right.
our plan, right? So
Yep. Yeah, yeah. So let's just jump right in. So our agenda for today, we're going to go over FUD around getting into crypto. We're going over cash is not king, how crypto is a new asset class, and then kind of talk a little bit about what's in your bag or what your goals are for your bag and even what exactly is a bag, right?
what is the back, right?
Yeah. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started and right into that. So you know, I
Yeah,
guess
maybe
I'll
you
start
just
off with
define what is FUD. I think we
right.
use these words and we throw them around quite a bit in our space because we know what they are, but I don't think
Yep.
many other people kind of understand. FUD is kind of one of those things that whenever
Well,
you see on Discord and stuff,
it's almost.
people
I mean, FUD
fear.
is this whole list, right? And so FUD stands for it's FUD, and that is fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Mhm.
And you see that a lot with misinformation on crypto, or kind of your clickbait stuff. Where it's like, is crypto gonna destroy the environment and things like that, where you see those headlines of kind of grabbing at those
It's
people are naturally
interesting
drawn
because I
to.
think I think even on Discord a lot, when I'm on Discord, people use the word FUD quite often, right? It's something that's a
Yeah.
regular occurrence on Discord. But they even use it as negativity. I mean, it's interesting because,
Hmm.
hey, no FUD around here, which basically don't be negative, right? Don't
Right,
say
right.
anything bad about people or anything like that. And I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
it's funny because listening to these millennials and
Uh-huh.
Gen Zs, they're all about positivity, right? Hey, be
Right,
positive. You don't be
right,
negative here, right? And
right.
so
Like
it's
they'll
just
even have like a whole category just for like if you want to be negative, go talk in that
right,
section. Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. And that's where our negative section is, right?
Yeah, what do they call the
So
energy vampires, right? You're
yeah,
sucking
yeah,
the
yeah,
life out
yeah,
of
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you hear? We can talk back and forth about things that we've been personally asked, but what's one of the things that you mainly
Yeah,
seem to get?
I think in this section, right, we're just kind of going over what are the big arguments that people have every time I talk to them. And I got to be honest, there is the biggest and the toughest for me to understand is when people say I haven't had time to look into it, or it doesn't make sense to me, or I don't understand it, right? And I get frustrated with that. I think my personality for one, and these people know who they are, right? Some of them may
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
watching this, right?
You're like,
So
I'm looking at you.
I was meaning to get into that, or I was meaning to look into that, or I was doing that. And again, I'm like that on a lot of things too, right? But again, I don't want to be like the dad that just says, "Have you done anything yet? Have you done anything yet?"
Right,
Right?
right, right.
But
Yeah.
here's the reality: is the reason I'm passionate about helping my friends mostly get into it is because I really see them in a dying situation. I hate my job. I don't want to work. When can I retire? And I mean, here's the single biggest opportunity for you to generate wealth, real retirement wealth, that you could get out of the rat race that you have and protect yourself against any crashes that are going to occur, and you don't have enough time to look into it, right? I'm too busy working, right? And you're just kind of like, wait, it doesn't make sense. I have a business to run, right? I'd let you run most of it now, but I have a business to run too. But we have made a choice, you and I as partners have made a choice to, hey, we're not going to focus as much on our business because we're going to put more time into this. There's a cost to our business on doing that, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is, we believe so strongly in that cost is worth the return, and it's already paid off dividends to us, right? And so when people just say, I don't have time or I have to do this, really what it comes down to is you really don't want to look into it, right? Because if you did, it doesn't take much. It's on YouTube. Literally in an hour, I can convince you on YouTube videos that, hey, you better start getting your act
this is
together,
important.
Right? It's important, right? This is important.
Yeah, and it's a matter of like, your actions versus your lip service of like, if you believe in this, then take the actions of it. It's at most, maybe a 2-hour commitment once to get started.
There's a lot of people I've talked to for really a year, right, on this stuff, who still haven't done anything with it. And again, I it's not that I don't feel sorry or bad, right? But I do feel bad. Like, is there something else I could have done? But it's just unfortunate because I see some of the predicaments that they're in, and I'm like, you could have really been out of some of those predicaments, right? You could have had opportunities that you've missed out on already, but you still have a lot of huge opportunity. And
It's
that's
not
kind of my idea.
We're still introducing people to this in the very beginning. And part of like us talking with people and presenting these things has been just a byproduct of what we've gotten personally, oh yeah, I see the success that's in this and I want this for the people that I care about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we started this group, right? 3 months ago, is we just said, hey, I'm tired of having all these conversations and maybe we can all motivate each other. But I can't tell you, it is the most frustrating thing. It literally, in 30 minutes, you could be owning Bitcoin and Ethereum and with practically no risk whatsoever. Right? You don't have to go all in and put $100,000 into it. You can just buy $1,000 of stuff and at least you're in it. And when you see that $1,000 turns into $1,200, now you start to become a believer. And then you start researching things yourself, and now you start to do a little bit more. That's all I encourage people to do. But I can't even get them to download an app and buy it, just $1. Right? Well, anyway, that's my biggest peeve. How about yours? What's yours? What questions do you get the most?
So I get a lot from people I've introduced it to, the very first thing that pops in their head, and they go, well, isn't it just a Ponzi scheme? And that's really tough for me to talk about because I didn't really participate in the era of Ponzi schemes, and I know what they were, but they weren't available to me, and
you had to have money.
Right.
Ponzi people don't come after the Corbins of the world, right?
Yeah, like high school Corbin wasn't like, oh, I was in this Ponzi scheme, I wasn't there for it, so I struggle with like.
I think people don't always understand what a Ponzi scheme is, right? So there's parts of it that I definitely agree with, right? But there's some things that it doesn't really fit the text of a Ponzi. So a Ponzi, by and large, says they are promising you returns, right? And that that they're promising you those returns for a certain investments, and they're usually pretty large returns. And I think the fact that crypto has really large returns is why people automatically equate it to a Ponzi, right?
Right.
Is crypto dependent on new money coming into the market? Absolutely, it is dependent on new money coming into the market, right? No doubt. And a Ponzi requires always to have new people coming in. That's part of a Ponzi. But let me tell you, that's what stocks are as well. The NASDAQ is up, 20-something% this year, and it requires new money to come in. If new money is not coming in, the NASDAQ is not going up. So again, you can take pieces of the argument and you can say, yes, it does require that or it doesn't require that. But in a Ponzi scheme, and the other thing about a Ponzi scheme is you don't know, they're lying to you on telling you where your money is coming. They give false statements. And in crypto, there is none of that, right? It's totally transparent. And that leads to another question that I think people ask, which is, do you think it's a scam? I think that they ask that in the same kind of the same manner. And let me tell you, there are a ton of scams in the crypto world.
Right. Yeah.
There are a bunch of scams in the crypto world. And that's why part of this research is important. And part of what we bring as a value, right, is to help people walk through. But I have been scammed, right? I have sent money to wallets that don't exist, right? I've done these things, right?
You
And again,
scammed yourself.
I can laugh about it because I'm not, feeding my family with the money that I lose. And, Carol knows about it most of the time, right? But I don't go and tell her, hey, guess how much I lost today, right? But again, you lose to scams and to rugs and to all these different things, but it's a learning process. But again, I think I've told you this before. I've made far more than I've lost. And I don't ever point my friends into things that they have a big high risk or any kind of risk that I take on those things, right? And so most of the time it's kind of like, hey, you're not taking a risk on Bitcoin. You're not taking a risk on Ethereum. Right? You're just not. Right. And so that's not a scam. They're not Ponzi's. They're true networks that institutional investors invest in.
Right. And the other part of that too, I get this, I'm sure you get it too, of like, okay, well, it's digital, all right, let's say it's not a scam, but since it's digital, can it be hacked? And you talk about how Bitcoin, the network of Bitcoin, right, it's been around for so long without being hacked, just itself, right, in the sense of it's because it's transparency, because of the way the ledgers work, and all of that is, you're in this space that is incredibly secure compared to what we have today.
Right. Yeah, because you're in a peer-to-peer network. You're not on a single server network, right? And so whether it be, I think the AWS servers went down and took out for the third time this year, right? And so took down a whole bunch of people's business stuff, earlier in the week or last week or something. Again, when you're in a centralized server world, they get to decide all the rules and stuff, and they can be hacked once you figure it out, right? Because you're only looking at one place. If I can get into that one server, then I can maybe get data out of it or people's personal information or whatever. In a peer-to-peer network, you can't really do that because the information is shared all over the place, and so there's you'd have to simultaneously get in. So I think that has been debunked. On can it be hacked has been debunked time and time again. And it's mostly, interestingly, it's mostly non-techie people who bring up that argument the most. And it's funny, they don't really understand it, but they just kind of reiterate it because it doesn't make sense to them. Right? Because they don't understand it, it can be hacked. But it's the same thing as why my dad didn't do online banking for years and years and years, right? It's not safe. I don't want to do it because it's not safe, because somebody can get my passwords and somebody can take all my money and stuff like that. It's the exact same argument. We've been through it before, and it's just people don't understand. But now the Xers, who were first online bankers, right, are now saying that's about the new stuff, right? So it's just this another generational gap, right?
Right. It's just a history repeating itself.
Yeah. What other things do you think that do you get argument wise?
So I get, when you talk about crypto, isn't it just like a stock? Isn't it basically just a stock? And again, I get to this space of I'm tempted in that conversation to just explain the entirety of what blockchain is, and it's hard for me to get away from that.
It is hard, right?
It's technology.
The elevator version, right?
And then this is why it's technology, and this is why it matters, and then you're like, okay, that's overload for the person who's just like, I don't know anything, I just think it's a stock, and why shouldn't I just buy like Tesla instead, or
right.
Like
and I think that was the hardest thing, I think, for me to break, right? Because it acts or it looks like a stock. I remember going to my accountant, we talked about this, trying to find accountants and lawyers who know anything about crypto is like I mean, they don't exist. Seriously, if I could go get my law degree right now, or my accountant degree, or master's in accounting or whatever, I probably should do it, because I could make a bunch of money with just the fact that they just don't know anything. So I go to my accountant and I say, hey, I have some crypto stuff this year, so I'm just curious. I want to get ahead of my taxes back in September. What do I do? And he's like, I've needed to look into that, and I haven't really looked into that. And I mean, this is typical in the financial industry and in the accountants and in lawyers who do estate trusts, and they have no idea how to handle crypto, right?
Right, and you're looking at like there's trillions of dollars of transactions in this space, and they're
Crazy.
like, I need to look into that. Like,
Yeah, it's
what?
crazy, right? And so he says to me, "Yeah, I don't own any, but I was thinking about buying it or whatever." And so he said, "But I think we just treat it like a stock." And I immediately said to him, "The IRS does not see it as a stock.
Yeah,
So why
yeah,
would you treat it like a stock?" And he's like,
right,
"Oh." And here I am knowing more, sitting in my chair on the other side of the desk,
right,
knowing more. Listen, the IRS sees it as capital,
yep,
right? So if you see it as capital, how do you treat it? And so me relearning how stocks look is not being repeated in the professionals that I go talk to, right?
right.
And so
Like,
I think
I'm
it
about
is
to give
hard.
you money for me to
Yeah, yeah.
teach you how this stuff works.
But
Yeah,
it's more of a capital, right? And so
yeah,
understanding capital. Now the SEC has not really given any direction, so that's not helpful either. But it
right.
also is a great opportunity for people. That's how early we are. That the SEC hasn't even given guidance on how to handle it. So you're not going to get in trouble either way because they
They
don't even
haven't
know.
they
They
don't
aren't giving
have
you any
rules
rules
in
around it,
place.
right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And they don't and the SEC doesn't even know if this is gonna fall into their space,
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
they would like it to because there's a power grab in Washington, right?
Yeah. So you have
But
commodities going after it as well,
yep,
right?
you
And
have a lot of
so
different yep. And we're going to talk about that when we get to the asset stuff. But,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then I get a lot of times, people just say it's too volatile. And listen, I think we went into this in one of our meetings. Yeah. You could literally have, a 10% drop in the stock market and everybody panics, literally panics in the 10% drop.
Right.
We just call that a Tuesday, right? Every
Right. And
Tuesday, every
for
Tuesday, we just know things are going to drop 10%, right?
right. So for me this is more like this is actually one that I'll accept, right? I won't really push on this
Yeah.
one because
Yeah.
it's like, hey, I get that. Like if you can't get your mentality to I look at this as a long-term investment in technology and you're gonna get sick every single Tuesday and Thursday when it moves up and down or
Yeah.
whatever it is. I was like, then I'm okay with that because I don't want people to be in a position where they're literally
There's
turning their hair
anxiety and things like
gray
that.
and
Yeah.
like I don't sleep at night. Like I don't want that in people's life, of course. That's health risks at that point.
Yeah.
But
So
it's volatile.
I think the couple things that I've accepted that volatility, and I've had to train myself. Again, I've had a year and a half to do it, right? To train
Uh-huh.
myself on the non-emotional. But I think every good investor is going to tell you we still get emotional. See those
Oh,
drops, right?
right.
You still
Yep.
question ourselves. Hey, did we do the right thing, or all that stuff. But here's the reality: is if you looked at my, and I'll show you my portfolio later. But if you look at my portfolio, this is 5 years from now in 2025. Do I believe that this portfolio is going to double or triple? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Easily.
And so if it
Right.
doesn't, if it drops 50% now, what do I really care? Right. Well,
Right.
I do emotionally, I care. Right.
Yep.
But the reality is that's not my play. My play is 5 years from now when I'm 60 years old, I want to be able to know that, hey, I have this much money in the bank because I've kept it there. And I would say probably 80% of my portfolio, I really don't touch. It just
Right.
earns interest and yield and it goes up, just keeps going up, right? And
Right.
and I love that, right? And then it's the other 20% that I end up, playing and
Yeah.
losing and
Right. Well,
making more money.
I think as you grow and learn and evolve in this space, you as those massive dips happen, you more start to look at it as like, I wish I had more money in my bank account to move today because it's lower.
Yeah,
The first
agreed.
time it happens, you go, this hurts, but then
Yeah.
as you get used to it, and then you start going, oh man, I wish I had more. I wish I had more. Yeah.
We're
So,
always going to look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have put more in when it was 16,000. I was
well,
really scared,
yeah.
right?
What was I saying to you was like, like your parents' generation, when my generation looks at like, you bought a house for $20,000 and you're like, my immediate thought is like, you should have bought 10 or 20 or whatever. We're not
What
going to go
was
buy
wrong
one
with
for
you,
three
right?
hundred thousand dollars, and it's insane that people who are alive today had access to buying things that were that cheap back then.
It's
Uh,
crazy. Yeah.
it's going to be the same space, just
And I
much
think
quicker.
our grandkids are going to look and say, you had the opportunity to buy Bitcoin when it was
You're
$49,000,
right,
and you're like, yeah, actually I did. So,
right. It is.
mhm.
It is. It's crazy. Yep. So cool. So then let's go ahead and let's move on to the next thing. Let's talk about what cash is king in the transition of that.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest questions I get a lot is, just people want to hold their cash, and it's emotional. I get it. I'm like that too. It's good to look at your bank account and see that I have, $30,000 in my bank account. Great. I love that. Right. And I can take it in and out as I want to. And I learned when I went through my MBA program, and it was ingrained into me over and over and over again as a future business holder, right? And understanding corporate America is that cash is king. Over and over, every professor I had, cash is king, cash is king, cash. And this is back in the late 90s, keep in mind, right? And in the late 90s, that was very, very true. Cash is king. But I've had to break my mindset of that because it just is not true anymore. So if you're a public company and you're holding cash, your company is valued less on cash than it is on hard assets, right? So if you own buildings, they value that as a shareholder more than they value the fact that I have $5 million in cash, right? And so, so now I've learned, and I think this is the saying in kind of the business world, is cash is trash, right? And it's just cash is trash, right? And so if you're holding cash, then you might as well just put money into a trash can, right? And so as a business owner, I'm constantly looking, because I've learned this in my business, and this is not something that crypto has taught me. This is something that life has taught me. Cash is not valuable except for the fact that it's liquid. So I can use it for an expense right away, right? But in today's debt world, again, we talked about the debt channel and that debt is cheap. In today's debt world, I can borrow for 2% on something if I ever needed it, and then I can pay it back and not ever really hold cash, right? And so I've kind of learned this process, and everything from me buying a brand new car, which I never thought in my life I would ever buy a brand new car, and understanding how to use, the interest rates and the fact that my cash, I have to constantly take my cash and put it into things that are growing. And here's why. So everyone loves to put out their numbers, but I'm going to use CPI. So in 2021, it looks like we're going to come out with a CPI, total CPI for the entire year, 5.3%, right? And so you can believe that 5.3% is the consumer price index. And that's kind of like, you can believe that that's a real number. I personally don't, right? I think it's much higher than that because the government has to take things out because they need to get reelected, right? And so they've kind of altered the CPI. I think they took housing out. Like, how do you take housing out of a consumer price index, right? And so that represents what, 40% of a person's, but I'm going to just take it out randomly because it just doesn't make any sense to my narrative anymore. But in the corporate world, we use a hurdle rate, right? So this is in today's world. We use hurdle rates, right? Which is basically, what does my business need to produce in order to gain more on cash, right? On cash equivalents that I'm bringing in. So on revenue. And so we call it a hurdle rate. So today's hurdle rate in 2021 is 20%. So a corporation is using anywhere between 15 and 20% today to say we have to make more than 20% on all of our cash coming in. So the only places you can do that is to either raise prices, right? Or to put it into assets that are going to gain you more than 20%, right? So a hurdle rate for an individual today is roughly between 10 and 15%, which means that you have to make more. If you're a salaried employee, that means that in 2022, you have to, just to keep up with the hurdle rate, you're going to have to make roughly 15% more than you make today. So if you're making $50,000 today, right, you're going to have to make $65,000 in 2025 or 2022, right? So I have employees. You are one of them, right? And in our end of the year meeting, did I come to you and just say, Corbin, I am going to raise your salary 15%? Did I say that to you?
Nope.
No, I did not. Right now, I did give good increases, right? But I can't give an increase that is at that pace, right? And no employer really can. But what we can do is we can say, hey, I'm going to take your salary from $10 an hour to $15 an hour. Great. You can do that. But the reality is we have to, start giving, your salary is always going to be less than the way that the cash burns, right?
Right. Right. In a move like that in salary is typically like, okay, we did it once and I'm not doing
Right.
it
Next year you
again
get your
for
3%. Right.
yeah, yeah. Like it's
Right.
not I
Right.
can't keep
Right.
up with that annually. You'd literally be doubling everybody's money every 5 years.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Or the price increases to the individuals would just move away to competition. And we've covered this
Right?
before, right?
Yep.
So when people say, I like seeing my $20,000 in the bank, right? And when you say to them, here's the reality is, and just use a round number that people understand. Every year you are going to lose 1% every month you keep that in. You're
Right.
going to lose 12% this year. So if you have $10,000 at the end of this year, you're going to have the equivalent, even though it'll still say $10,000, you're going to have the equivalent of $8,000, $8,800, right?
Right.
Because things around you are going up at a much faster rate, and the
Mhm.
debasement of currency is there. The only thing that you can invest in that is going to beat that are things that are appreciating more in value. So buying a house, for instance, or
Right.
Nasdaq equities, right, or crypto, right? And so the whole game is around, your money is not your friend, right?
Right.
That's the moral of the story, is your cash is not your friend.
Right.
And you
Right.
have to get, my boomer friends have to get past that. Cash
Yes.
is not your friend. It may
Right.
feel like it is, but it is not your friend, right?
Right. Yep. And of course, we're all about making new friends, right? And
Right,
so,
right, right, right.
so if we're introducing crypto as our new friend, right, we're getting rid of that old friend, not a friend anymore, new
Right,
friend. How is understanding it as a new asset class, right?
right,
And where that like falls into that space.
right. So this is where the millennials and the Z's were left out, right? How do I participate in the asset world, right? Now, my boomer
Right.
friends have 401ks, they have a house, maybe they have some fixed income, we know that they are sitting on a lot of cash, right? Boomers are.
Right.
And then maybe some are in commodities, but most of them are not. Really, it's two things: equities, I'm in the stock market, and real estate. Those are the two things that boomers and Xers really have invested in, right?
Right.
Asset wise. And so
Yep.
those are your two options. So there are 5 asset classes: cash, equities, fixed income, real estate, and commodities, right? And out of those, most of the people, I would say 80% to 90%, really are in equities, which is your 401k, et cetera,
Yep.
and real
Hmm.
estate, right? Those are the
Right.
two that they care about the most. So
Hmm.
real estate keeps going up, but then and equities, technology equities keep going up, but other equities, Coca-Cola, you know, housing, GE, GM,
Hmm.
all the ones that we kind of look at, Lucent, those kind of things. All of those companies really are not growing
Right.
to reach their hurdle rate. What they're actually doing is they're borrowing money cheaply, and they're
Hmm.
buying back their stock, which is the only thing that's keeping their stock from collapsing,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so they're not generating cash. What they're doing is they're generating cheap debt,
There's
right?
zombie companies or zombie stocks.
In
Yeah.
in
Yep.
in a sense, to keep up with these things, and eventually that's going to all unravel. But tech stocks, Tesla, Google, Facebook, Apple, all of those stocks, even the Ubers of the world and some of those, will have the technology stocks are growing. And so, I guess as a you know as a word, I'm just kind of like, hey, I have technology stocks, but I don't think I own any airline stocks or cruise ship stocks or any of that. I just don't. I just think that those companies are just treading water, right? And
Right.
because we inject so much capital, even banking stuff, I don't invest in any of that stuff, right? Because capital is so much in the market, those are just being held up by stock buybacks and by tricks of the trade, so to
Yep.
speak, to keep their stocks, looking good for their shareholders, right? So
Right.
that's kind of my 2 cents. But tech stocks, yeah, absolutely. If you can buy, but Corbin, do you have, what is it, $1,000 to buy Tesla today?
Right. Right.
I
No.
mean, no, you don't have $1,000 to buy Tesla. But do you have $50 that you can put in and buy a fraction of Bitcoin?
Right. Yep.
Absolutely, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah. Yep.
so when you look at the asset class, there's really two schools of thought. One is that crypto is another asset class. So it's
Mhm.
another asset class that anybody can participate in, right? So it's like a
Right.
sixth asset class. And so,
Yeah. Right.
right,
Right. So, and then also, because it has digital scarcity, and because we can all build digitally, we can recreate all those classes potentially in this metaverse space too. So I think there's two ways to look at it, and that builds an investment space available to everyone. And so like you have like, is it an additional asset class, or what's it look like as a kind of evolves into a space that touches all of the asset
right.
classes. Right.
Yeah, and I think that there's two schools of thought, right? And so, the thought A, theory A, is that hey, it's a sixth asset class, right? And
Right.
theory B is that it's really an asset class above all asset classes because it touches all of them, right? Now, I'm not
Right.
an expert in this stuff, and quite honestly, I don't think anybody knows. Here's what we
Right.
do know: it is really, 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 really big, right?
Right.
That it is either going to be a separate asset class, a brand new one, which we've never seen in our lifetime or anybody else's lifetime alive, or it's going to be the granddaddy of all asset classes because it actually touches each one of these
Right. It
areas.
incorporates all of them,
Yeah,
and it's got use cases in each of the spaces as well as recreating them.
right.
It's right. Either way, it's huge.
So in the big macro, and we're talking about big guys, Mr. Wonderful, right, is a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
proponent of this, right? You have Mark Cuban, you have Raw Paul, you have all the macro
Happy
investor
Wood.
guys,
Yep.
Kathy Wood, right? All the macro investor guys. I mean, yeah, you have your your Schiff or whatever it is that
Yep.
is even Warren Buffett
Well.
is questionable, right? But
Right.
I think that for the most part is they understand it. You have the old guard and the new guard, but the
Right.
old guard is starting to come over into the crypto world. So for my individual friends to say, "Hey, you're so early that these
Mhm.
old guard people still don't get it," that
Right.
is an opportunity for you. So maybe you only put 10% of your 5% of your portfolio into it, or 10%. You know,
Right.
hey, is it worth the risk? Absolutely. Right.
Right.
So you have the opportunity to invest in a whole new asset class. You don't have to go all in like, right? Or
Right.
Corbin, right? But at the
Yep.
same time, Corbin and I have an income stream. We have a job. And so that
Right.
job will provide us income still. We have,
Yep.
a little bit of savings that if something goes wrong, we have it. But we also have crypto that I'm telling
Yep.
you, if something goes wrong, I could take out $100,000 on my crypto and have it in 20 minutes.
Right. And
I
that
can't
was,
do that with a bank.
right. One of the big things that Tesla did as a proof of concept is one of these big companies, when you talk about having liquid access, is they bought a bunch of Bitcoin, and then they, in the next quarter, sold it.
10%.
Right. Millions of it, right? Millions of dollars of it to go, look at this. It's liquid in the sense
Yep.
of, in 3 days, if I need access to millions in capital, I have it, and it's
And
mine, and it's going
and he
up.
did that so that he can go to his shareholders and say, "Hey, this is an asset class that I can buy and get out of tomorrow.
Right. It's
If I
not a
need to, I
commercial
can do it tomorrow.
building,
I'm not buying a building that's going to take 3 years for somebody else to sell it, right?"
Right,
And
right,
so, it's better than commercial real estate. And I can move it to any country I want to.
right.
Right? I
Yep.
can't move a building to any country I want to,
Right, right, right. And you have
right?
access everywhere and at all
Everywhere.
times. Yep.
Absolutely. And
Right.
so, again, if you aren't in the game, this is a reason just to get in the game, right? Back to
Yep.
my original question one, I
Yeah,
don't have
yeah,
time, right? Or whatever it is. Listen,
yeah.
again, lamest excuse. You
Yeah,
are
right.
have an opportunity that you've been looking for, and people are kind of like, well, I'm thinking about starting a business, or I'm thinking about, and I'm like,
Well, it's
hello.
also like, you don't have to get to like where we are in a week.
Mm-mm.
It's little bites and little spaces, and finding the things. So I guess let's go to our next thing, which talks about how the different bags, how it breaks up in more specific terms, and where people
Right,
can
right.
start to.
So what's a bag,
Yeah.
Corbin?
Oh yeah. Okay. So right. So we talk about bag is like
It's one of those words that you have to know in the crypto space.
it's synonymous with portfolio, right? And so it's like my bag is, and these are the things that I'm buying, right? The things that I'm interested in, or whatever. And that's a word that you see tossed around all the time as well, right?
Mhm.
What's your bag look like? You know?
Yeah. I put this slide together. I think it makes the most sense to people. And it's not exhaustive, just to let you know. And things are popping up on it all the time. Just as a, I don't know what would you say, full disclosure, you and I are in every single one of these spaces, right?
Right.
So I don't think that there's one of these spaces that we don't
have something
don't have a hand
today,
in,
right?
Today, correct. Like we understand it. We've taken real money and not put real money in each one of these. Some we've learned the hard way, and others we've incredibly been profitable, and others are, hey, eventually that game is going to be released and I may make money, or I'll understand it better when that is done, right? So, but I've kind of put these into two levels. In the level one slides, the bags, everybody watching can do every single one of these first 6 in less than an hour. Every single one. You can participate in all 6 of these bags in less than an hour. There's nothing preventing you. You don't need to know how to put a wallet together. You simply go out and you do the steps that we talked about time and time again.
We wouldn't suggest it, but like you can just go get a Robinhood account and then instantly do every single one of these, and that would be our.
Well, not really everyone.
Well,
you can't do DeFi, you can't do Dapps. There's things that you can't do. So Robinhood, bad example, right? So let's talk about Voyager, right?
Right. Yeah. So you can do Coinbase,
Voyager, correct.
Yeah.
Well, for most part, if you have Voyager, you can do every one of these tomorrow. If you don't have Voyager and you have Coinbase, or you buy your coins somewhere other than Voyager, you can open a Celsius account, and again, within that same hour, you can still have all of these, right? So let me go into them. So most of these are the protocols, right? So the protocols are going to be your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your AVAX, Sol's on there, Cardano's on there. Think of this as owning a piece of the internet, right? So these are the rails that everything, it's the network, it's the rails that everything moves on. Now, are all of these going to be around in the future? Well, Phantom might not be, Binance might not be. I mean, I think that there's going to be multiple rails that things are going to run on, and then they're going to have a thing called interoperability, which basically means I can move from one rail to the other rail, like a train would move from one rail to the other rail, right? You're going to have those bridges that happen, and it's really clunky today to move that stuff, but to buy it is not clunky. I can go on Voyager and I can buy all of these on Voyager today. Right, or on Binance US today, or Coinbase
FTX
or whatever, FTX,
Bitcoin.
correct? So for the most part, buy a protocol. Just buy a protocol. It's safe. They're not going anywhere. Bitcoin and Ethereum, you're not going to lose money on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I just don't think long term you're not going to lose money on Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Right. So, and then you have exchange tokens. So these are very, very good to a lot of people, right? But every exchange you get, whether it be Voyager or Celsius or Coinbase or FTX or whatever, have a native token, and normally they use these native tokens as, think of them as rewards, right? So, almost like a what do you call it, a mileage club or something like that, right? So, on a credit card, you kind of earn. You
have like different tiers of membership and VIP and like Costco, all of it.
Every one of these exchanges use those as rewards to their customers, to the people who use them. So as you trade, you're earning rewards on these. You also use these to pay your little fees on some of those exchanges as well. And so because they do take fees to transfer and to buy and to do some of those. So, I think that everyone's going to have to hold some of that. So if you go to Voyager account, get a little bit of VGX, right? Not a lot, just a little bit. If you get a Binance account, get a little bit of BNB. But you'll also see that those grow exponentially as well, right?
Right. Yeah, and that kind of goes to like the DeFi part too, of when you're in these exchanges, a lot of times, like Voyager specifically, they go, hey, if you hold 100 Voyager, you'll get 10% on this as it just sits here.
Right. Or you'll get an extra 0.5% on your
Bitcoin returns.
Right?
Yep.
So let's talk about DeFi. So decentralized finance. So this is
Yeah.
an easy way to talk about, this is a bank. So think of it
Yeah.
as a bank today. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever it is. The
Right.
DeFi space is giving you interest on savings and CDs and things like that in a bank environment. The
Yeah.
DeFi world, you're getting interest on all the tokens that you hold, right? So if I
Right.
hold Bitcoin today on Celsius, they pay me 4.5% interest. If I hold Ethereum on Celsius, they pay me 6% interest, right? So
Right.
you're
And
earning interest on top of any gains that ends up.
right. So I was going to pause you there because it's not interest in dollars; it's interest in the coin. So
Right.
you're getting, if you're getting 5% rewards in Bitcoin, you're getting paid out in Bitcoin tokens on top of the gains that you get
Right.
as it moves up in value, right? And so 5% is the bare minimum, especially long term,
Right.
that
Right.
you're earning on this stuff, right?
Yeah,
It's wild.
exactly. So again, most people, again, in 5 minutes, you go to Voyager, you buy Bitcoin. As soon as you buy Bitcoin on Voyager, you're earning, 4% interest on that.
Right.
You don't have to
And
do
it
anything
doesn't take a
else.
lot. It's not like you got to have $100,000 to get
Right.
that interest rate.
You don't have
Right.
to do anything else, right?
Yep.
I mean, you don't have to fill out any paperwork. You don't have to put it somewhere and say, hey, can I get interest on this? Or do I have to
Yep.
do extra work? You don't. You just buy Bitcoin, and they automatically, if you buy it over $100 of Bitcoin, you automatically are getting rewards.
Monthly.
Now,
Just get a
monthly,
monthly
right?
drop into
Right,
it.
right.
Yep.
And Celsius does it weekly, right? So they give
Right.
you a weekly
Yeah.
drop
Yeah.
of it. So, and then you have Dapps, which are just basically protocols built on top of that. You can buy this on any exchange, whether it be you can buy Uni, you can buy Luna, you can buy a lot of those things. So again, Dapps are something that you can just buy. And we go into that a little more on our Patreon on what Dapps do you want to buy are good and stuff like that.
Right.
Stable coins, everyone's going to, the safest of all of them is buy a stable coin. It won't go up or down in value. It's always going to be pegged to the US dollar. But
Right.
on Celsius, I'm earning, I think, 9.5%
Yeah.
on my stable coin or my USD that I have on Celsius. But here's the thing is 9.5% still isn't hitting my hurdle rate of 12%, right?
12%. Right.
But it's a lot better than me holding my cash in the bank.
Or your
Yep.
0.02%.
And
Right.
literally it takes me, so here's the process. Literally I can sell on Voyager or Celsius or anything like that. I can sell it. Immediately it turns my USD coin into USD in a matter of seconds as soon as I decide that I want to sell it, right?
Yep.
Because I'm not looking at buying or selling at a certain price because it's always going to be worth $1, right?
Right.
So I sell it right away. It turns into basically fiat currency on the exchange. And then I just transfer or withdraw it into my, USAA bank account.
Right.
And then I have within 10 minutes, I have cash again.
Right.
I'm back in
Right.
a cash position in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have to call anybody to do it. I just do it right on my phone.
And you can even, like with some of the apps like crypto.com, they give you a debit card that you can tie to
You
your
don't even
bank
have to
account.
do that.
So
Exactly.
you don't even have to go through the transfer process back to your bank account. You just spend it straight there.
That's right. And
Yep.
Voyager is coming up with a debit card
Right.
too.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then you have these meme coins, which is kind of like, hey, this is where all the kids
Everyone's
hang out, right?
favorite.
Is the Doge, the Flokis, the Shiba. Well, hey, you can buy those too. So hey,
Right.
buy a little bit. Why not?
Yep.
It's fun, right? So hey, I'm
Yep.
going to put $100 into Shiba Inu coin.
Right. The
Right.
novelty
And
of it is
now we're
going,
trendy, right?
like I own 1,000,000 Shiba Inu, is going
Right.
like, ooh, look at that, and I put $30 into it is the
That's right.
exciting part of those.
That's right.
But, now we shouldn't go into this too much, but the networks that those meme coins have built are massive. I mean,
Huge.
they rival like
Absolutely
Bitcoin and
huge.
Ethereum. I mean,
Yep.
it's so many people get into them. And so,
Yeah.
you have like Elon Musk saying you can buy Tesla merchandise with Dogecoin now, and Mark Cuban sold some Mavericks.
That's one of those things.
flag.
Nobody knows where it's going to go.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm just going to hold on to a little of it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So nobody knows. So let's just hold on to a little of it.
Yeah.
So good. So this layer 2 that I have down here, now this is more the speculative stuff, and it kind of goes from left to right, more speculative as you go down the chain. Actually, NFTs are fairly speculative too, but they're so deep. There's so many areas to go into this. We couldn't possibly do it. So again, this is one of those things we go into a little bit more on our Patreon. We'll be going into more of, hey, what are these some of the opportunities in each one of these spaces and
Right.
stuff like that. But this is something that you just need a wallet, and we can coach you through that. For some of the people that you know that we know that just ask us, hey, this is part of the coaching thing that we would do, is help you
Right.
get into staking, or help you get into NFTs or yield farming or metaverse or gaming or DeFi 2.0. And there's a huge amount of gains. There's also scams that you have to watch out for. But
Right. And
this is
that's where I think we come in as like a significant resource, because we, through our scars, can navigate people through these
that's right.
spaces
That's
and
right.
going like, "Ooh, yeah, I recognize that type of
And
thing."
we
Or,
know people
yeah.
who are deeper than us inside of
Oh
these
yeah,
right
right,
spaces.
right.
So, hey, we can refer to, hey, this is a person that would be great. And I think that what I love about the crypto community is everybody's willing to help everybody. I haven't met
Yeah, yep,
anybody who said, it's almost like this community of people where I can just, people I don't know on Discord who would say, yeah, yeah, just try this or do this, or, try this. And you have to kind of find out, and you ask questions and stuff and people answer them. And it's a
yep.
non-threatening environment, I think, but we're all learning together. Right. And so, um,
Right. They're passionate like we are, and even like the people who own these systems are really just at heart. Like, I want to build in this space because I want all people to do well.
right.
It's
Yep.
never a massive greed grab unless it's a scam, right? But for the most part they are. I want to build decentralized because I want other people to participate in the growth and success with me.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
that's exciting, and that's something
Yeah.
that everybody wants to get behind.
Sure.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think what I do personally is I take my little bag, right? And so
Hmm.
like this is a protocol bag. And I
Yep.
set up a short-term goal. So for instance, my short-term goal for 2021, right? Not long, but in March of 2021, I said I would like to own, you know, 2 Bitcoin and 50 Ethereum.
Right.
And I don't even think Sol was on my map, but then I got to where, hey, I want to own Sol,
Yeah.
around May or June or something like that. And as things pop up, I set up short-term goals and then medium-term goals.
Right.
So I don't own 2 Bitcoin today, right?
Yep.
But I'm pretty darn close, right? And so
Right.
I'm like 0.15 away from owning. So I may just at the end of the year just sell something and just
Just,
buy it and
yeah,
keep
and
my
just get it to
goal,
say
right?
you
Because that's
got
how
it.
we do,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And then I just take my Bitcoin and I sock it away into Celsius and I just let it sit there. I don't ever sell my Bitcoin.
Right.
My goal is just to put stuff that makes money into Bitcoin, take my profits and put it into Bitcoin,
And right. And
right?
in our
Or
space,
Ethereum.
that's you're stacking your bags, right? And
Yep,
so,
yep. And
you
so
know,
Ethereum, same way, hey, my goal is 50. I'm not at 50, but I'm at 40 something, right? And
right.
so every time I have a little bit of profit that I make I take out, hey, I have $2,000 in this thing that I'm doing staking wise. So I'm going to
Hmm.
take the, you know, $75 that I made in my staking, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to buy $75 worth of Ethereum,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so
And I
for
and
things,
I think this is good too, because it puts it in a space that is applicable today that people should be doing as well. Is like, you have your goals, right? No matter what it is, whether it's health goals or career goals and all those things, is you want to get stuff done. You set your short term, medium term, and long term goals, and treat this the same way, especially when you're just getting started.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I think if you look at, we went over this last meeting too, and I don't have any problem sharing it, but just my own portfolio. If
yep.
you look at my own portfolio, my portfolio basically is heavy on protocols, right? Right
Yeah.
now,
Yep.
I think, what is that? Ethereum, Bitcoin, Sol, Matic, AVAX, and Luna are all protocols. So that's what
Yep.
80% of my portfolio is the rails that everything runs on.
Right.
And so it kind of gives people, and this is just my holding portfolio. This is not my speculative, hey, I can lose
Yeah.
money or whatever it is.
Right.
This is
Right.
just my, hey, I'm socking that stuff away, and this is what I'm doing. And I think actually we laughed about this, but I took this picture about a week ago. But I think today actually Matic is 11% because Matic and Luna have shot up, and AVAX have all shot up
Right, I'd
like
imagine
crazy.
Luna, those 3 just
Yeah,
moved up.
yeah.
Right.
So I now have I think 34% of my portfolio is now Ethereum because those really through no fault of Ethereum's, those just shot up, right?
Right.
And so, hey, even in the down market, there are some things that happen that if you're in the right place, and my portfolio is broad enough that I will always benefit from those things. But I'll also lose really a lot bigger too when things go down. So, but I think it's just a matter of having a plan, trying to figure out what do I want to get into. And what I tell people the most is the first three on my list are Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Solana. If you
Right.
just buy those, safe, easy, and available.
Especially when you're just starting off,
Right.
as you kind of grow too in here, you're gonna find things that you're interested in. Like I remember when we were looking at protocols, and I couldn't really tell the difference between Sol and ADA and Matic, and I'm looking at them and I'm just like, well, I like Sol's. My decision was on I like Sol's token colors better of the three. I was like, I'll just buy more Sol because I like that better, and so then that's the one that I chose to pursue. And then, but all of them have done well. All of them have apps being built on them and everything, and so no one's ever going to go, I got my crystal ball and I know exactly what's going to happen in this space. And so part of it is like finding just the things that kind of speak to you as you do your own research, find the things that you like.
I know that this is a painful conversation for you, so I don't mean to bring up the pain, but I also want to show the opportunity. But early on, I think you were the first one to buy Sol out of us too, right? You were the first one to buy Sol. And then I bought Sol. So Corbin, I think you bought like 25 at something like $5 or something.
I bought 120 of them at $5.
At $5, right? And so I jumped in probably when it was around 6.5. And so I bought, a little bit of it, and probably a little bit more than you, but I think at one point I had, 300 Sol at $7 or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
And then as soon as it went up to 45 or something, I think I sold like half of it. Right? Hey, it goes from 7 to 45, and I think I sold like half of it. Right?
Me too. Yeah.
And then it kind of sat around there for a while. Today, in the down market, Sol is worth $188 today. Right? Now, I bought back in when it dipped back down into the 30s, a lot more. I don't think you did, right? And that's why it's so painful.
Yeah, I basically had my I'll hold on to these long term, but I need, now and we're in different positions, right?
Yeah.
Where I am needing to take more profits so that I can continue to get more gains, but you can't go, oh, this thing's gonna.
Yeah,
what
who would
even
have
is
thought?
that? The 30x.
But it did go all the way up to $240, right?
Right.
246 or something like that. And so an initial investment of $6 goes up to 246, all within 7 months.
Right.
And then it drops back down to 180. And people are kind of like, oh, well, you lost a lot of money. Well, no, I didn't lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the mindset is no, I don't live in that world. I live in the world that I bought something at $6 and it is worth $188. Praise Jesus, right? I mean, seriously.
And especially when you combine it with the DeFi stuff of you're going, again,
and I'm making interest on it.
System. Right. So you go, okay, I bought it early enough where I made profit, and even though it goes up and down and it looks like I'm losing stuff, you're also gaining more as time goes on.
And I believe that Sol is going to be $2,000 in the next 4 or 5 years. Right. I just think that's how big it is. Right.
Yeah.
And so what do you care if you buy it at 180 or 140? It doesn't matter. Just buy it. So all of my kids have Sol, all my kids have Ethereum, all my kids have a little bit of Bitcoin. Not to the extent that I do, but they have their own short-term goals. Right. And so they own all three of those, and they own more stuff too, but they have a lot more Shibu than I do.
Yeah, but you get to the place where you can say that about Sol, because it's not just because you go, stocks only go up, so in 5 years it's going to be 2,000. You go, I'm watching, look at these cool projects that Sol is participating in, supporting and building, and look at these other systems that they have getting integrated, and look at these like Michael Jordan saying he's going to launch a social network on Solana, right? Things like that we see as we are going through all of it. And going, that's why we believe in Sol. We're not just going to go.
Yes.
I have a lot of this thing. It's going to go to $2,000 because.
And the bottom line on protocols is protocols are built for transactions, right?
Yes.
So if you think of how Visa makes money, or how clearinghouses make money, right?
Mhm.
Is that they take a fraction of every transaction. Well, that's what the rails do, right?
Right.
So
Well,
these
what do you
rails take a
like?
fraction of everybody's transaction and they give it to the users. So every
Right.
time a transaction is made, hundreds of thousands of millions of transactions on that network, I get a fractional piece of that.
Right.
Right?
Comparatively to like I know that and if you want to if you remember the number, but like what does Visa do per minute or second or however they
Yeah, I think it was
denominate it?
like, two per second. I think it was like 250,000 transactions a second, right?
Right. In Solana, I know Solana's is the max that they hit. And mind you, this is a project that's been around for I mean a year and a half now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
400,000 transactions per second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
400,000. And so an average, I think at its peak, I think, Visa did like 300 and something, right?
Right.
So Solana can do more transactions per second than Visa can, right? And so
In
the
total
technology
security.
exists, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
technology exists. So,
Yeah. It is. It's
okay,
great.
I think we've kind of exhausted our peoples on the
Yep.
video, but yeah, so I think that again we can go on, and we will there on other
Right.
videos, but I
Yep.
think this is a good stopping point. And
Yes. Yeah. One thing that, I'll just tag this on to the end is I'm going to put out, I think it's 4 or 5 videos on here's some easy steps to get started. Right. And you can go on, you can watch those and go, okay, this is a
right,
little
right,
baby step that I can take today to get you into the thing. And then, like I said earlier to the Patreon people, we're going to launch some more system specific, market specific videos that you guys can see so you can start doing that layer 2 bag grabbing.
yeah, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. We're really trying to get to where our Twitter is our announcement place, right? So
Yes. Yep.
if you don't do Twitter, start doing Twitter and follow us at Nifty Stuff, but it's with a one instead of a, and then
Yeah.
obviously you see our YouTube page. Keep checking back with it, and we do have our own website as well. So
Hmm. Yep.
you know.
Yeah. Thanks again. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you guys on next Thursday, 7 p.m. No technical difficulties. That's the
Right,
goal.
right, right.